Astronauts to the moon.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to reality.
What's going on, everyone? Jeranism back with another video for you. So, science. What is it all about? Is it good or is it whack? Is it all it's cracked up to be? For all you in the crowd tonight, if you're down with gravity, let me hear you make some noise. I apologize for that. But I went to the B.O.B. concert, and I'll be making a video on that soon. But the DJ, or the opening artist, used this rap horn a good 50 times and told us to make some noise about 100 times. And I don't believe people should have to suffer alone, so I brought a little bit back for you. Don't worry, I won't use it again, unless somebody out there wants me to, in which case you better make some noise. Nobody? Anyone? One more? Okay, no more. On to more suffering. Science, is it good or is it whack? You know my opinion, but don't trust me. Don't just blindly follow my word. Do your own research. I've completed some interesting points for you, and we'll begin by going to an expert, the high priest of theoretical nonsense, Mr. Lawrence Krauss.
Every day we challenge our beliefs. That's how science works. Most people think science works the other way around. But in fact, what you want to do when you come into work every day if you're a scientist is you want to prove all your colleagues are wrong. Because that's the way you get famous. And in fact, the key thing, as Richard Feynman, who I wrote another book about and I've lectured here in Canberra about, would say that, you know, what you try and do if you have an idea, if you're a scientist, is you have a theory and you try and prove it right, but you try and prove it wrong. You try and spend more time proving it wrong. You try and spend more time proving it wrong.
Oh, really? Is that what you try and do, Lawrence? You spend more time trying to prove it wrong?
Because, first of all, the easiest person to fool is yourself. It's easy, you know, we all think things happen to us are significant, and Feynman used to go around and say, you won't believe what happened to me today, you just won't believe what happened to me. And people would say, what? And he'd say, absolutely nothing. And because we all believe when something happens to us, it's significant. It has some cosmic significance. And so we have to challenge our beliefs every single day. That's what science is all about. There are no scientific ideologies, and in fact, the reason science had progressed and theology hasn't, the reason we have video cameras and lights and medicine and make our lives, and we can feed more people and live longer, healthier lives, is because science changes. The great thing about science is there are no unshakable truths. We force and we don't even believe anything. We force the way we view reality to depend upon the evidence of reality. So if you don't challenge your beliefs, you're never learning. You're never questioning yourself.
Challenge our beliefs every day. No scientific authorities, no unshakable truths. Well, it sounds good, because if you started to tell us what to believe and what beliefs are stupid, I'd have to say you're leaning towards the religion of the 21st century, the religion of Scientism.
The great thing about science, there are no unshakable truths.
These are up here to indicate to you, they're two scientists, that if you don't think there's a possible tension between science and religion, you're wrong. Albert Einstein, who was no atheist, nevertheless put that quote up, and it's certainly true that at least for certain of the world's religions.
But not true for science, huh? No need for blind belief when you were taught it in schools and tested on it. When certain experiments are said to have proven the facts and the ones who proved otherwise are forgotten or ignored. And then we get these so-called intellectuals thinking they're smart, calling others stupid, and then they reject the creator simply because those they just called stupid did a poor job of explaining who or what God was? Doesn't make much sense. Those laws of nature you study, you think those just came into being from nothing? Really?
Every year, the National Science Foundation does a study of scientific understanding, basically, and attitudes towards science. I want to quote the 2001 study because it's my favorite. Here's some depressing statistics. At that time, 53% of American adults were unaware that the last dinosaur died before the first human arose.
Yeah, don't question your old beliefs, even though you said you challenge them every day. Ignore this pottery dating back 800 years by your established dating methods, or this jug dating back 1,000 years. Dinosaurs were just unearthed in the past 200 years. How did these ancient desert tribes draw these?
50%, this is the second one's always my favorite. 50% of American adults knew that the Earth orbits the sun and takes a year to do it. That so astounded me when I first saw that I thought it must be a trick question.
Pay attention now to the indoctrination of these people in the crowd that immediately upon hearing that there's controversy about the Earth going around the sun or the sun going around the Earth, they immediately start bust up laughing, just on cue.
So I went to the survey, and the survey question was, the Earth orbits the sun and takes a year to do it, true or false? And every year, 50% of people get it wrong.
Good morning, everyone. Today we will be focusing on science, so I hope you all left your common sense at the door. Because here we separate the foolish from the smart. Today we're going to start with the Earth. It is a ball and it spins. It's all been proven countless of times. Smart people have known for hundreds of years that clearly we go around the sun. Don't be an ancient desert wanderer and trust those eyes you have. Nope, they are junk. Because those simpletons believed they lived on a flat Earth and that the sun circled around them. I mean, unbelievable.
And the survey question was, the Earth orbits the sun and takes a year to do it, true or false?
Oh, wow. Half the world is tarred now. Of course it's true. I hope they're kidding, man. I hope they don't ever procreate. Hope they haven't added to the gene pool. And come on, you dummies. We learned about this when we were like babies.
It was a banner year, however. It was the first year in the history of the survey when more than 50% of American adults claimed to know that human beings as we know them today developed from earlier species of animals. First time that more than 50% were in agreement with that statement. It didn't last long if you look at lots of other. Here's another survey in 2007. 60% of American adults surveyed stated their belief that God created humans in their present form less than 10,000 years ago, in spite of the fact that that's just not true. Just nonsense.
The great thing about science is there are no unshakable truths.
Humans have been in their present form for a lot longer than 10,000 years. Okay?
No unshakable truths, except for evolution. Got it.
Science has an ethos, which I think is very important, and Richard Feynman described it well. He said, the only way to have real success in science is to describe the evidence very carefully without regard to the way you feel it should be. If you have a theory, you must try and explain what's good about it and what's bad about it equally. In science, you learn a sort of standard integrity and honesty, whether you want to or not. And in fact, though the ethos of science involves a lot of things that I'm quite in favor of. Honesty.
Honesty, huh? Well, we'll see by the end of your speech how honest you are.
Creativity is a key aspect of science, of the ethos of science, or should be. Full disclosure. As Feynman said, you're not allowed to pick and choose. If there's data that disagrees with your theory, you have to include it. And anti-authoritarianism, which is my favorite. There are no scientific authorities. No such thing. God created humans in their present form less than 10,000 years ago, in spite of the fact that that's just not true. Just nonsense. There's scientific experts, but there's no one who's an authority in the sense that their word cannot be doubted or questioned by the lowliest, you pick the lowliest graduate student, lowliest dean, whatever. All things are subject to question, and that's a key aspect of science. Here's a statement from George W. Bush talking about evolution and intelligent design. He said, both sides ought to be properly taught so people can understand what the debate is all about. Now, this is not an intrinsically stupid statement, surprisingly. It is a perfectly reasonable statement. It's a statement that would make sense if there was a debate. What it represents is not stupidity, but ignorance.
The great thing about science is there are no unshakable truths.
The fact is that the president was ignorant of the fact that there was a debate, and he's not alone. Most Americans believe there's a huge debate on this issue. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. First, I want to, however, make a disclaimer, or not a disclaimer, I want to make a statement of fact, that evolution is a fact. There's no discussion, there's no debate, there's no nothing. It's one of all things are subject to question, and that's a key aspect of science. Evolution is a fact. There's no discussion, there's no debate, there's no nothing.
Objection! Hearsay!
It's one of the most successful and impressive scientific theories of all time. We physicists have done a con job. We've convinced everyone that Einstein was the greatest scientist, or Newton, or something like that. But in fact, I'm pretty convinced when you look at the person who single-handedly changed our thinking about the world the greatest, I think it was Darwin. And the biologists just aren't as good at self-promotion, I guess. It's been based on over a century of observation, prediction, testing, all the hallmarks of good science. Okay, so let's lay that issue to rest.
The great thing about science is there are no unshakable truths.
All things are subject to question, and that's a key aspect of science.
Oh, I do agree with your con job and your most successful theory of all time. Based on over a century of observation, prediction, and testing, you've observed that no species have ever turned into or evolved into another species. Prediction, since you and Darwin predicted the amount of transitional fossils we'd see, and we see nothing even close. And testing, we have never seen a species change, never seen a bacteria become a non-bacteria, yet we've tested this millions of times. All the hallmarks of awesome science. But Mr. Not an Authority says evolution is a fact. There's no discussion, no debate, no nothing. Let's look quickly at the idea of evolution. Now think, let's say we have a small dog, and he dies in 2016, and we've got a much bigger dog, say a Great Dane, and he dies also in 2016, and 1,000 years go by, and dogs at this point are now extinct, and then we've got some archaeologists that are digging in 1,000 years, and they happen to find these two dogs. Well, scientists would just say that the smaller dog evolved into the larger dog. That's not right. Let's think even on an even deeper level regarding evolution. If you think of speciation, we have unique skulls, and throughout the whole process, they have one skull that differentiates a species from another skull. But if evolution really happened, then you would see the transitions from skull to skull to skull would be so minute that you would never be able to pull one out and say this species is different than the other. It would just be a long succession of animal skeletons that all led back to the beginning and to the end. Hopefully this is making sense, but if evolution were true, we would not be able to see different species of humans, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo snaldus, Neanderthal, whatever they're called. We wouldn't see it. Science should not be in the business at all of discussing our origins. I'll even go as far as to say I am more qualified. Today, scientific fact is bought. It is auctioned to the highest bidder. When you next hear that science has discovered X, ask to see the results. Ask to see the study, not just the published piece. I don't mean the paper that was submitted to the journals. I don't want to see the summary. I want to see actual data. Ask to see all the notes, the test subjects, the conditions that the tests were done in. You'll find nothing. The cult of science and the NASA fanboy followers don't want it. They want to basically bully and demean the other religions because they have no idea how we got here. So maybe their computer simulators can do it up. At every single level of observation, evolution is faulty. It is not there. There is no observation. We have not one complete skeleton of a so-called transitional human. Not one. We don't even have any feet. It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't even know how the theory is even considered scientific. I mean, show me a clear series of skeletons from one animal to another. Show me that. I mean, you can't just show me a few mammals that have a few reptile-like bones. I mean, it just makes no sense. Fact is, they teach it and rely on it based on faith, which means it's a dogma. And then they reward those who believe in it and punish those who don't believe. That makes it a religion. And when you do it without proper judgment, it's a cult. And they're teaching it to our kids.
Now, this is all about making myself credible in your eyes again, and I'm going to do that by admitting that evolution is a lie!
God damn you, Mac!
Yes, please do, Mac. Now, as you can see, this is the evolution meter, and I've put God, the creator of everything, on the right side, and evolution on the left. I went ahead and put you guys all on the fence because, of course, you're going to hear out my
Actually, no. Yeah, just start where I would start.
No matter. I'm righteous. I'm not going to stand here, present some egghead scientific argument based on fact. I'm just a regular dude. I like to drink beer. You know, I love my family. Rock, flag, and eagle, right, Charlie? He's got a point. No, he doesn't. What? See, Charlie? These liberals are trying to assassinate my character. And I can't change their mind. I won't change my mind because I don't have to, because I'm an American. I won't change my mind on anything, regardless of the facts that are set out before me. I'm dug in, and I'll never change.
Mac, look, you're wasting our time. You're not going to get us to not believe in evolution.
And why is that?
Because the smartest scientists in the entire world all agree that it's real.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because, Mr. Reynolds, science is a liar sometimes.
Oh boy.
This is Aristotle, thought to be the smartest man on the planet. He believed that the Earth was the center of the universe, and everybody believed him because he was so smart. Until another smartest guy came around, Galileo, and he disproved that theory, making Aristotle and everybody else on Earth look like a bitch. Of course, Galileo then thought comets were an optical illusion, and there's no way that the moon could cause the ocean's tides. Everybody believed that because he was so smart. He was also wrong, making him and everyone else on Earth look like a bitch again. And then, best of all, Sir Isaac Newton gets born and blows everybody's nips off with his big brains. Of course, he also thought he could turn metal into gold and died eating mercury, making him yet another stupid bitch. Are you seeing a pattern?
No.
Mr. Reynolds, these were all the smartest scientists on the planet. Only problem is, they kept being wrong. Sometimes.
This is insane, you fool!
I'm a fool because I have more faith in the saints that wrote the Bible?
Yeah, because you just read the words of a bunch of guys that you never met, and you just take it on faith that everything they wrote was true.
And what makes you think what your scientists are writing is any more truer than my saints?
Because there are volumes of proven data, numbers, figures. There are fossil records.
Oh, fossil records. Ah! I didn't even think about the fossil records. I guess I'll concede. Oh, wait, one more thing before I do, Mr. Reynolds. Have you seen these fossil records?
Have I? Huh?
Have you poured through the data yourself? The numbers, the figures?
Well, no. No.
Oh, interesting. So let me get this straight, Mr. Reynolds. You get your information from a book written by men you've never met, and you take their words as truth based on a willingness to believe, a desire to accept, a leap of, dare I say it, faith?
Come on. Look, I mean, I don't even know how I'm supposed to respond to that. Like, come on. That's a false equivalency.
Just answer the question, Mr. Reynolds.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
I rest my case.
Oh, that got me. Yeah.
Frank, do you want me to?
Let me.
Yeah, all right.
What?
Well, we're going on the fence. I mean, it's a shadow of a doubt.
You actually don't believe in evolution anymore?
I don't know. He created a reasonable doubt. He makes you sound like a stupid science bitch.
Oh, my God.
But some people try and make it sound more scientific by saying something like, the notion that existing cellular structures are too complex to have been explained without design. Now that sounds scientific. To something else. Now the reason is there's no really good definition of intelligent design is that, unlike evolution, the notion has not been subject to anything like peer review, and that tends to refine ideas.
Perhaps my ideas don't need refining. Minutes ago you said there is no authority in science, but now my science must all of a sudden go through peer review, which is authority, in order to be printed. Peer review is simply organized conflict of interest. Let's let all the guys who have been studying and writing scientific literature for the past 20 years of their lives decide whether the last 20 years of their lives were a waste of time or not.
Now, however, there is a way to define it in the current context. Intelligent design is very simply opposed to evolution.
The funny thing here is intelligent design was actually being used well before evolution, so I'm not sure how that's its definition.
Whatever you think, if you're opposed to evolution, that comes under the rubric of intelligent design. But the question is, why do you have to be opposed to evolution? What's the point? Why are so many people opposed to evolution?
Oh, me. Okay. Because it's bullshit. Because it's totally nonsense. This entire evolution idea is one of the major stumbling blocks for humanity. and the lengths that you go to make sure that a creator or intelligent designer does not come into play is actually a little psychotic. Possibly a self-esteem issue. Not sure.
Evolution is a fact. There's no discussion, there's no debate.
A fact? How can you call it a fact? You say Christians are idiots. They're simpletons, so I'm guessing you must have a better model, of course, right? How else could you call someone else an idiot? And your model? All the matter in the universe came from, wait for it, nothing. It just appeared. Came out of nowhere.
Evolution is a fact. There's no discussion, there's no debate.
Evolution is simply believed by those who need it for their job's sake, and those that hate religion and think they found truth in science. Living things go through constant adaptation throughout their entire lives, and through morphic resonance. But adaptation is changes because of one's environment. You don't need to change your species because of your environment. We have to draw the line at species into a new species, because it doesn't happen. It's never been shown to happen in any test, in any study. It's simply a religious belief.
The great thing about science, there are no unshakable truths.
The truth about science, however, is that there is a dogma so deep, a dogma so revered, that they will push even the most ridiculous nonsense as truth, and then tell you you're only smart if you agree with their nonsense.
Evolution is a fact. There's no discussion, there's no debate.
Another possible issue with this whole evolution data is the idea of population growth. My opinion is that population grows. Yes, you can have a famine where a bunch of people die, or a disease, or a war, but I feel that for the most part, population grows. People have always had kids, and they've always had a lot of kids. In the 1800s, 8 kids was the norm, and that goes back even further, but you can even look at 1800 and say that it would have been seen as a benefit. The more kids you had, the more help you had. You had farms you needed to tend to, and family businesses, so they had a lot of kids. So looking at this population growth slide up, if we have starting population and time and growth rate, we should be able to figure out the population at a given time. So example would be if we start with 2 people and the growth rate is 1%, then we can see that the population will be in X years. So year 1, you just take 2 times the 1%, year 2, 2 times the 1%, and so on and so forth. You'll see year 3 is 2.04, year 4, 2.06. Obviously there's not 0.6 people, but that's how you can estimate it out. So by year 200, our population would be 14. By year 500, the population would be 286. Year 1000, the population would be 41,503. Now you might notice that it's growing exponentially, meaning it's going to increase at greater and greater amounts, just like when you take a penny and you multiply it by 2, within a month you have $1 million. In this case, you also could take and say each penny, as it turns 80 years old, dies off. No matter what, you're still growing exponentially. So we can see that to be true when we look at the year 2000, what the population would be under these current restraints, and the population would be 869 million. That's after 2,000 years. So at the year 10,000, what do you think the population would be? You can take a guess, or you can just see that the population is astronomical. I have no idea what that number is, but it's impossible. So you'll see that that's just 10,000 years. So what I'm saying is if we go back and look at what they say human history is, when people would have had more kids, you would have been even safer. The more kids you had as they grew up, you would protect yourself from predators or whatever it would be. They would have had a lot of kids. Nowadays, we may have a lot less, but we still have a growth rate percent of even higher than we took in those examples. The growth rate percent now is 1.2%. So they are clearly lying about how long humans have been here. That's my opinion. I beg you to do the research yourself. You will find out the same thing. Here you can see with our current population info that our population growth is 1.2% as a world, and in the 60s it was well above 2%. And they say humans have been here like 100,000 years. That's absolutely crazy. You can find online a couple human population calculators, and this one here I put in the starting year of 1 with the starting population of 2 people, and I did a 0.5% growth rate, and in 50,000 years, what that number is at the top there would be our population. 399 Neil deGrasse Alien. I don't know. Population, if we went 20,000 years with the same 0.5% growth, and the population would be 4 Lawrence Krauss lie zillion. So we'll try it again with this time 6,000 years, still at a 0.5% growth rate. And in 6,000 years, our population would be 19 trillion. Another ridiculous number. Change that to a 2% growth rate, which again it was in the 1960s, and your numbers again 782 Neil deGrasse Illion. And change that to 3,500 years with a 2% growth rate. Again, some stupid number that obviously is not true. So you're starting to see, if we look into this, that it is possible. Yes, we know that there's been famines and things like that, but it certainly seems like we haven't been here for nearly as long as they say. With 3,000 years and a growth rate of 1.2%, which is what we're at now, we've got 687 trillion, which is ridiculous. And that's 3,000 years. And with 2,000 years and a current growth rate of 1.2%, we get 45 billion. Again, much more than it is now, but we're getting a little bit more realistic into current times. Population with 2,200 years and a 1% growth rate puts us at 6.3 billion, which is right about where we're at, or so they say. We can even do it a little bit lower, go down to the year 1110 with a 2% growth rate, which again it was in the 60s, puts us at 7 billion. So, interesting numbers. Have we been here as long as they say? Has the Earth been here as long as they say? Another great thing about this calculator, and in case you want to use it, the link is in the description. But you can also put a check mark in the box that says show totals, and this just shows that you can scroll down and it will actually show you every year, and you can see the increase as it goes year by year by year. So, are they lying? I think it goes without saying.
The marketing strategy has been very effective. It's the marketing strategy for intelligent design is based on some notions that really resonate with the American public. Open-mindedness. Listen, we should be open-minded about all of the issues, and we shouldn't be dogmatic about things like evolution. Honesty. Let's be honest about the fact that most people don't believe in evolution. And the one that really resonates is fairness. It's only fair if most Americans don't believe in this that we introduce in the schools the alternative. And that latter one particularly resonates with the public, but they all do.
We should be open-minded, honest, and fair. So I totally agree.
The problem is it's really garbage. All three of these are just invented. Because in fact what the public really should see is that this is closed-minded, dishonest, and unfair.
There's the Lawrence we know. I was confused for a second. I thought he left. Yeah, it's really closed-minded that I'm even willing to teach evolution in schools. That's fine. But teach the other options so that the kids can see how stupid evolution sounds.
Open-mindedness is when you force your beliefs to conform with the evidence of reality rather than the other way around. Okay?
No, not okay. Open-mindedness is when you force your beliefs... What?
But the worst part is the fairness issue. Because here's how science is done. Often. Not always, but often. The good thing is to start out with a novel claim. It's not required, but it helps. And then we do. Well, then you do research. What's research? You do the thing that Feynman said. You try and prove this idea right, and then you try and prove it wrong. Okay? And then, if you're convinced the idea has merit, then you submit it to a journal. What happens? It gets sent out for peer review. What's that? Well,
you already told us what it was. It's the difference between evolution and intelligent design. This is a strict way to refine ideas and move people closer to the facts.
Well, that means it gets sent to idiots. And they come back and they explain to you, without having read the piece really, what they think is wrong and why they weren't referenced. And then you write back to them using small words. And then maybe, if you're lucky, the thing is published. But lots of garbage gets published in every issue of Physical Journal, Physical Letters, or any major journal. There's lots of garbage. Doesn't matter, okay? Because what happens is, if it's really interesting, other scientists start to read about it and do research based on it, and then maybe eventually scientific consensus builds up. That may take decades. And only then does it make it into the high school textbooks. That's why high school physics texts are 20 years out of date, at least, usually. Because it takes a while.
I can't possibly imagine why anyone would question science. It seems like such a perfect system. You submit your paper to idiots, they don't read it, and then sometimes they do, and if they can sift through all the garbage that makes it into the journals, some of the garbage makes it to textbooks. Outdated and false. I can't imagine a better system. It's perfect. You guys are brilliant. Nice setup.
Remember that at least 50% of the populace doesn't believe in evolution. In fact, it's worse than that. Let me show you a really, really scary statistic from 2005. So when people were asked, regardless of what you believe personally, which of these do you believe should be taught in public schools? 12% of the American public said evolution only. Almost twice as many Americans said only creationism should be taught in the public schools, and then the rest of Americans said everything. Okay? Open-mindedness.
Let's take a look at this scientific study. Now, regardless of what you may personally believe, which of these do you believe should be taught? Well, what does that mean? If it's regardless of what I personally believe, then I have to answer what I believe. So it's not my what does my friend believe? I don't even understand the study at all. Not only that, but he talks about 12% of the American public and the populace. Look what I circled down here below. This poll came from 1,000 U.S. households. 1,000. There's 300 million people in the United States. And this poll is polling 1,000 people, and this guy wants to go ahead and claim it as scientific data. If this is the kind of scientific data they are using, then no wonder why evolution is considered true.
So it's really clear that by far a majority of Americans would like to, at the very least, teach more than evolution or teach no evolution. Okay, so more than 50% of people feel that way. So shouldn't we therefore teach it? Well, I just want to remind you of one of the statistics I presented to you earlier. 50% of American adults know that the Earth orbits the Sun and takes a year to do it. Does that mean, therefore, that we should teach the Earth-centric cosmology in physics class?
Yes, 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 and yes. Yes. I found this little quote here. Evolution is fact, not theory. Birds arose from non-birds and humans from non-humans. No person who pretends to any understanding of the natural world can deny these facts any more than she or he can deny that the Earth is round, rotates on its axis, and revolves around the sun. So, sorry.
And in that sense, evolution is just like Newton's law of gravity. It's exactly the same. It's just as historical. And in fact, to give you a sense of how historical things are, here's from doesn't really matter if you can see it that well. This is the sun, in case you didn't notice. And so, well, the sun is not a historical object when we look at it. Well, you can say, okay, it takes 8 minutes for the light to get from the sun to the Earth, but that's not really history. But it's not quite that way. So does anyone know how long it takes? So the sun is powered by nuclear reactions, we discovered. So the light that comes out of the surface of the sun originated in the center of the sun with nuclear reactions. Do you know how long it takes for the light to get from the center of the sun to the outside of the sun? Okay, about 1 million years. Takes the light. So every bit of light that's emitted from the surface of the sun originated in a nuclear reaction 1 million years earlier. Okay? So we really are doing historical science when we look at the sun. We're looking at the energy that was emitted 1 million years earlier. And by the way, if the solar system and the Earth were 10,000 years old, the light wouldn't have made it out to the surface, okay?
I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous.
So we already know. Every week I like to think of another thing that refutes the 10,000-year-old idiots. And so anyway,
let's just call people 10,000-year-old idiots. Let's ignore evidence like the oldest tree in the world, 4,800 years old, Methuselah, and ignore evidence like the earliest form of human writing ever found, 5,000 years old. Let's just ignore that and go with the date of rocks, because we just test them and it's 4.6 billion. Idiots.
When we do astronomy, when we look at the sun, we're doing historical science, because we then make predictions based on that million-year-old data, and we make predictions of what the interior of the sun is like, and we can make predictions about the temperature profile and the density profile, and then we can test those predictions, and they're bang on right. And it's the same with evolution. We can make predictions based on what we have observed from either fossils or the genetic relationship between mammals, and we can make predictions of a whole bunch of things which we can go out and test, and then for over 100 years, evolution has satisfied all of those tests.
Million-year-old data, temperature profile of the sun, bang on right, and evolution has satisfied all of the tests.
And in fact, though the ethos of science involves a lot of things that I'm quite in favor of. Honesty. Now, let's talk about intelligent design a little bit. And I won't spend a lot of time on the biology of this, but I just want to point out that this notion that there's intelligent design is at least questionable if you start thinking about nature. And in particular, think about species. First of all, almost all species that have ever appeared are now extinct. Over 99.5% of all species that have ever roamed the earth are now extinct. So you've got to ask, design? Good design?
Now, I know better than to take these clowns for their word, so I had to go check if it was 99.5% of all species are now extinct. I mean, come on. So first, I took a look, and at this site, I see if you add those numbers up, you get 1.7 million. Okay. Second site says 7.2 million. So that's a pretty big difference there, 5 million difference or so. So I said, let me check one more spot. I checked another spot, and I got 8.7 million, give or take a few million. So I was willing to take that number, 8.7. Sounds right to me, I don't know. So then I take a look at this article on the right, and it says, planet Earth may contain millions fewer species than previously thought, and as estimates are converging, I'm like, come on. They're off by millions. And these clowns want us to believe that 99.5% are extinct. Then I look up, and that article says Earth could contain nearly 1 trillion species with only 1/1000th currently known, according to a study from biologists. I mean, come on, I'm supposed to believe 99.5% are now extinct, and you were off, not by millions, but by 992,300,000.
I want to just point out that every scientific claim, every single one that's been made, from the genetic relationships between humans and chimpanzees to the non-existence of transitional fossils to the evolution of bacterial flagellum to the nature of blood clotting, every supposed challenge to evolutionary biology has in fact been proved wrong. Every supposed challenge to evolutionary biology has in fact been proved wrong.
Oh, I can't take this guy anymore. He's painful. And I can't take how he keeps moping back and forth on the stage. He reminds me of Snuffleupagus.
This is a scientific theory. You can test it. It makes predictions. It makes scientific predictions. Now, if you have a certain religious belief, you can take it to validate that religious belief. On the other hand, if you don't, you can take it to equally well validate the notion that there's no need for God, that you take the laws of physics back to t equals 0, and everything just works. What you take out of the theory depends upon your religious or philosophical background.
You're angry.
But the theory works or doesn't work independent of them. It just doesn't matter whether you believe it or not the Big Bang really happened. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not evolution is a fact. It's independent. And you should realize that fact, and therefore, first of all, not try and use it one way or another, but also not feel particularly threatened by it. Namely, if you cannot believe in God if evolution happened, then you better give up your belief in God. But if your belief in God in whatever reason is deep enough, then since it happened, the existence of evolution cannot be inconsistent with the existence of God if you believe both of them. And so you have to bring the two together. So, but the science is just independent of that. Now I want to, as I say, I got to ask. This is origin, so I want to spend a little time on the universe.
You're angry.
Before I get to some of the final issues.
Sunny day, sweeping the lies away. On my way back to reality. Can you tell me how to get rid of the elite? Those motherfuckers are really bothering me.
Yeah. Listen carefully.
The teachers say we spin once a day. Unaware they're indoctrinating. Now the students must forget all these facts 'cause they're obsolete. All the things my teacher taught me.
'Cause they don't fit the things that I see.
No such thing as the moon landing.
Yeah.
Buzz could outdrink anybody.
True. NSA thinks they can monitor me.
Don't sell out like Neil deGrasse.
Yeah.
Earth is flat, kinda like a frisbee.
Yep. Space is real mathematically.
We don't think that you should lie to kids. We don't think that you should show your face.
We don't think that you are really cool.
I want to ask you the following question. How would you measure the curvature of the Earth if you had no recourse to outside space, so you couldn't go around and see the Earth was curved, or you couldn't go around the Earth? Okay, well, here's how you do it. You take a triangle, and then you ask a European high school student, what are the sum of the angles in a triangle? And they'll tell you it's 180 degrees. And you say, okay, but that's because you learned your geometry from Euclid. On a curved surface, you can do something else. Here's the Earth. I can draw a triangle that's quite different on the surface of the Earth. I draw a triangle. I take a line along the equator. I make a right angle, go to the North Pole, make another right angle, come back to the equator. And now I have a triangle with 3 right angles adding up to 270 degrees. And therefore, if you make a big enough triangle on the surface of the Earth, you'll see it's different than 180 degrees, and you can measure the fact that the Earth is curved.
Let me show you exactly how they're cheating the situation here. So they're saying that if you walked from the North Pole to the equator, then across the equator, and then went back up somewhere, that would be a triangle, and it would have more than 180 degrees. But let me show you why that is. So you'll see here I drew a triangle, and if we zoom in on this spot right here, yeah, we'll see that that is a 90-degree angle. And we can go over here on the other side of the equator, look in, 90-degree angle. And so that's why they say that with this 90-degree angle here, that we would have more than 180 degrees. This is where they lie and cheat, and I'll show you how. So in these two circles here, the green circle on the right is just a blown up version on the one on the left. That's the triangle that they basically use when they're walking to the North Pole. And if you look on the right side, you'll see the blue line and box showing the 90-degree angle. But if you actually walked straight, you would of course veer off the path that is drawn by the pink so-called 90-degree corner there. And we know that because if you look at the other side across from it, it would also be a 90-degree angle, and we all know that two 90-degree angles across from each other, the lines that they create would never, ever converge. They are parallel for all time, for eternity, but not on the so-called globe. On the so-called globe, they say they come together at the North Pole. If that were true, we'd be able to test this and prove my theory right over theirs. You would need, as you see on the lower right-hand side of this picture, you would need levels. Let's pretend that each of those little white squares is a level, and we put them all together and glued the ends to create a straight line. As you started walking away from the equator, and you stayed true to that line created by the levels, or it could be planks of wood, it could be anything that holds your straight line, except for the compass. The compass does not hold your straight line. The compass takes you to the North Pole. So for instance, down at the bottom where we're looking at the straight line of levels marked with the letter A, consider that the equator. Consider the straight line of levels under B being the line up to the North Pole. And then take another one of the straight lines just like you have on B and put it over on side C. And now you've got two 90-degree angles across from each other. And when you started walking, if you stayed straight on those two paths, believe me, you would never get to the North Pole, and you would never even converge, because those are right angles. They're parallel to each other. You could keep walking straight, as seen by the blue line on the left, and you would not go to the North Pole. And this could be tested, but it would take, obviously, a lot of money. I've looked into it before. You would need $30,000 at least just to prove it in another way, by showing the levels or pieces of wood, whatever you had that you glued together end to end. Would they go off into space as they would on a globe, or would they stay, as we all know they would, flat to the ground? Now, we actually don't need to test it because it's something that's been done before, and it's already in your city or your town. It's everywhere you look. It's train tracks. Train tracks already prove that those items lay flat to the ground. Here's a quote for you. J.C. Bourne, in his book The History of the Great Western Railway, stated that the entire original English railroad, more than 118 miles long, that the whole line, with the exception of the inclined planes, may be regarded practically as level. The British Parliament session in 1862 that approved its construction recorded in Order Number 44 for the proposed railway that the section be drawn to the same horizontal scale as the plan, and to a vertical scale of not less than 1 inch to every 100 feet, and shall show the surface to the ground marked on the plan, and the intended level of the proposed work, the height of every embankment, and the depth of every cutting, at a datum horizontal line, which shall be the same throughout the whole length of the work. If you do the curvature calculation on 118 miles, that is 9,091 feet of curvature, or about 1.5 miles. Just think of how far 10,000 feet is in the sky. That's how much curvature there would be. Yeah, from Krauss to Kansas, curved oceans, curved straight lines. I mean, you've heard before the shortest path between 2 points is a straight line, right? Yeah, not in the globe. As you can see here, when we try and do a straight line between 2 locations, this was New Zealand to about where Santiago, Chile is, you can see that the line is not straight, and you can still draw a straight line. So they're just telling you can't go that way. Sorry, makes no sense. Here I'm going to draw a line from Honolulu, Hawaii to Mexico City, and you'll see even this line, it curves by itself. Of course, they pretend like that's the shortest path. It's not. A straight line would be. You can even see the line underneath it is straight. Why not just take that path? So here you'll see I drew a line from Honolulu to Mexico City, and we will get the distance there as soon as I get the right tool and move this thing over into the right spot. Then we can see, and it will come out to 3,630 miles. And you'll see that there's a straight line right underneath that pink line. Why don't we just take the straight line? Nope, because the shortest path is the great circle on the imaginary ball that you spin on and don't fall off of. Anyway, you'll see here that I'm trying to keep the 3630, and look at that, we're still at 3620, 3627, 3621. You're telling me that that yellow line is shorter than the pink line? Of course not. However, in the world of fake ball Earth, you will see a lot of anomalies, and this is just like the rest, another one of the many lies that they tell you that people just go on believing. They don't want to even look into it because it takes work to realize this is a deception. They're not trying to not fool you. They're absolutely fooling you in every possible way at every turn. So if you haven't yet looked into the flat Earth, I suggest you do. Believe me, there are not train tracks bending around a ball with trains driving upside down on the other side. It's not happening. It's make-believe. It's pretend. It's fantasy. It's not reality.
We now know, in fact, by measuring this, that the universe is flat to high accuracy. Okay, which is interesting because us theorists, of course, we don't need observers. We knew the universe was flat. We don't need observers because we know the answer whether we're right or wrong. In this case, it was right because the only mathematically pretty universe is flat. The fact that we live in a universe dominated by what's become known as dark energy, a substance that we do not understand and we don't know its future. But because it dominates the energy of the universe by general relativity, it will determine our future. And if we are correct, measuring it as we have, then we kind of get an idea what the future is. The point is that, the reason I put it up here is that describes the universe. If dark energy dominates the universe and continues to, we live in the worst of all possible universes for the future of life. You could not pick a worse universe for the future of life. Okay?
No, it's not okay. I mean, are you kidding me, Mr. Honesty? I'm done listening to these lies masked as science. You've lied over and over and over again, and now you say, wait, I have to hear it again. One more time. Say it again.
We live in the worst of all possible universes for the future of life. You could not pick a worse universe for the future of life. Okay?
No, it's not okay. And in fact, I don't even feel like I'm going out on a limb here to say that was the dumbest statement I've ever heard in my entire life. This is the worst possible universe you could pick for life. Here, I put up a couple universes that I've created. The first one is the 3-line system. Those lines are all as thin as fishing wire. No humans could live there. It's a terrible universe for life. The next one there, the snowman universe, gets bombarded by red meteors every day by the millions. It's worse than this universe. That little yellow dot there, that universe is made of cyanide. That's a worse universe. How about the universe that's just like ours but ended yesterday? That's worse. How about the one that ended today, a couple minutes ago? That's worse. How about the one that ends in an hour? That's worse. How about the Alex Jones universe where we have to live on his shoulders, but the universe is only as big as he is? That's worse. How about this snake universe with those pink suns all over his back? You couldn't possibly live there. That's worse. How about the octopus planet system of universe in the upper right? It's got suns that live on its back. Can't live there. How about the box universe down below where flesh-eating stickmen live? I'm pretty sure I could come up with infinity worse universes for life than the one we live in, that is the only one that has life and has fostered life, according to you, for 4.6 billion years. But I guess that's not good enough for you, idiot.
So much for intelligent design of the universe. Okay? If you want a universe whose purpose is to promulgate life, if that's what you think its purpose, that's not the universe we live in.
I didn't think it was possible to blaspheme, but that was blasphemy. It's just ridiculously stupid. You live here, jackass. How could it be the worst possible universe for life? I don't get it.
Science teaches us to oppose blind, unquestioning belief. That's clearly the path to nonsense. So those people whose faith is based on blind, unquestioning belief, scientists should argue that that's not the path to knowledge. And the Bible, Quran, and etc. are historical documents. That's what they are. They're written down by human beings. They were passed down by largely illiterate peasants through their oral tradition, and therefore much of what is in the scriptures is just inconsistent with what we know about the world. That's just the way it is. Okay?
No, it's not okay. I guarantee you that not one of those blind, illiterate peasants ever said in their entire lives that they lived in the worst possible universe for life. Not one. What you said has been inconsistent in the world.
And there's lots of ways to see this. This is my last picture. Here's a source of awe and wonder. It's not a painting. This is a total eclipse of the sun as seen from the other side of Saturn from the Cassini satellite.
Objection! Hearsay!
So the sun is behind it, and it's illuminating the rings of Saturn. Fine, but what's really neat, which you can't see in this image because the resolution of the projector, but if you go to the NASA website you can see it, is right there. There's a little pale blue dot between those rings, and that's the Earth.
This is crazy!
And you see the Earth as a little pale blue dot in the darkness behind Saturn. It's telling us the fragility and the amazing aspect of here we are on this small thing in the middle of nowhere, doing what we're doing, and I don't know what happened there. Okay, no, you can't see it. No, you can't see it. You have to go to the site. But to me, that's the kind of wonder and awe that science brings that really enlightens the human spirit. And for me, that's as good as it gets. Thank you very much.
Lawrence Krauss is insane. Science is based on fact, not opinion. It must be testable and falsifiable. We've tested evolution. It has been proven false. Yet they still teach it. It's a cult. Science has proved nothing at all. And with our degree of belief in some sort of mathematical model, even if it gets stronger and stronger and gets better and better, without an infinite amount of testing, we will never know if it matches reality. Nikola Tesla said, "Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation, and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality." Nikola Tesla. But such mathematical proofs are only part of the story of science because the important bit, the bit that defines science, is whether such mathematical laws are an accurate description of the universe we see around us. Newsflash, they're not. In fact, science has little to do with proving anything. Make sure you get that. Science has been dragged down into the dirt, spit on, stolen, purchased, and has been 100% compromised. It has become Scientism, the religion that is taking this world sadly into a place where it could really be in trouble. If you have any mind left, any mind at all, if you have the human spirit left, just look at what has been done. You are now considered crazy according to this world if you protect your kids from vaccines, if you question Common Core, if you know 9/11 was a made-for-TV movie, if you know the government stages false flags. It is ridiculous. If you know fluoride is in the water to harm you and your kids, and chemtrails are in the skies polluting them, polluting our water, polluting our bodies, If you think the Earth is flat because you can see through the lies of NASA, you're a crazy person. The alternative of this, of course, is to be considered smart and normal. You have to believe chemtrails is a conspiracy theory. 2 kids bombed the Boston Marathon. The government loves you. NASA is legit. We went to the moon, and evolution is full of good science and facts. I mean, come on. Chemo heals the patient. Big Pharma tries to heal you. It's in their best interest to put themselves out of business. GMOs are great. Global warming is real. Bill Maher is smart. And Lawrence Krauss is not a liar, a charlatan, and a complete and total fraud. To those who know the truth and know what truth is, know that only one of these last 2 people is brain dead. Only one of them is indoctrinated and a tool of those who work on behalf of darkness. They walk like us. They even talk like us.
They even talk like us.
But they are not like us. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't lose what we have left. Be kind. Don't lie. Open up your mind. There's truth inside. This has been Jeranism. Till next time.
On the weekday, you can see the signs. You can see the signs. They wear the disguise. Look into the mind's eye. There's nowhere to hide. No stick-covered lies. Whispers from afar. We know who you are. Windows to the stars. Walk like us. They even talk like us. Walk like us. But they are not like us. On the weekday, you can see the signs, you can see